From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
It's been a whirlwind first month for freshman Congressman Gabe Amo, with Republicans this week voting to start an impeachment inquiry against his former boss, President Biden, while back home, a major bridge in the heart of his district suddenly shut down. All this while the 36-year-old Democrat is still unpacking boxes in his new office. Our guest this week on Newsmakers, Congressman Gabe Amo. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, joined by 12 News Politics editor Ted Nisi. Congressman Gabe Amo, welcome to the show. You're first as a congressman and not a candidate.
Completely.
Feels different, doesn't it?
It feels different, but I'm glad to be on with you regardless.
You got the pin, too.
I do have the
green
pin.
this year.
So that I guess you are official. You have the pin. All right, look, we do have to start with the fiasco on the Washington Bridge. As all our viewers know, the westbound side was shut down on Monday over concerns that it would collapse. As we tape this, two bypass lanes were just opened this morning. Before we get to the policy questions, Channel 12 studios are in East Providence. You told us before the show you came directly from TF Green, excuse me. What was the drive like?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised that there wasn't a backup coming west, and I'm glad that there's relief for Rhode Islanders. Frankly, I want to express my sympathies to the Rhode Islanders, the small businesses, all of those impacted by something not of their creation at what is a really busy time for people to go to holiday parties, to do their holiday shopping, and I'm hopeful that working with DOT, working with the rest of the delegation on any support that we can get from the federal government, that we can make sure that Rhode Islanders don't bear the brunt of this really unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, and it has also sparked real concern that more of Rhode Island's bridges are in rougher shape than we think. We know that there are 169 bridges that are structurally deficient right now. Washington Bridge was one of them. But it's clear that highway officials in Rhode Island didn't know how bad this bridge was. Does Rhode Island need more federal help, more federal money to take care of what is clearly an epidemic here?
Yeah, what is clear to me is that we need a robust top to bottom assessment of where we are to have a full shape. We've been talking about bridges and structural deficiencies for years. When I worked in the governor's office for Governor Raimondo, we spent a lot of time talking about that yielding road work. So I think it's really important, especially with the infusion of funds from the bipartisan infrastructure law passed by a Democratic Congress led by folks here in this state with Senator Rhode and Senator Whitehouse, that we tap into every dollar that's possible. But we need a full scope of the situation and analysis to make sure that we're moving as fast as possible.
Well, and to your point, you served in the Raimondo administration while roadworks was being debated. I have to ask you, that was 7 years ago. Is it frustrating to you, now you're obviously wearing quite a different hat as a member of Congress, but that 7 years after that big legislative fight you all had to get roadworks passed, one of the biggest, most important bridges is still getting shut down abruptly like this?
Yeah, I think, look, we've funded significant road and bridge projects in this state. We have more to do, clearly. And I am glad that an inspection found this and that we did not have a disaster at the lengths that we saw in Los Angeles or in Philadelphia. But this is disheartening because people expect government to work, to function. So my role is to spend time with local officials today. In fact, I will spend some time hopefully with Mayor De Silva, with Secretary Tanner, with SBA leader Mark Hayward, and get a sense of how people are impacted. But then we've got to do the real work of navigating the federal government, navigating state DOT, federal highway, to make sure that we have what we need so that we don't have this again.
When you're speaking of federal highway, Congressman Jake Auchincloss from the 4th Congressional District of Massachusetts had the opportunity to question federal highway officials during a hearing this week. Let's just take a brief listen to that.
Do you think there are things that the state could be doing to reduce the timeline for repair? I mean, we're looking at, in Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro got it up and open in, what, a week?
2 weeks for Pennsylvania, 8 days for California. I think those
are the kind of timelines we're looking for, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Representative. I understand that for Rhode Islanders and everyone on the East Coast, it's a critical artery. We will do everything we can to get that bridge open as quickly as possible.
Congressman, earlier in that questioning, Congressman Auchincloss talked a lot about how the bridge closure is affecting his constituents that are working their way into Rhode Island, trying to get into or through Providence. Have you been hearing from constituents about this?
Yes, I most certainly have. We are just getting up and running. I have offices open in Washington and Pawtucket, and I've heard from many folks. I'm getting text messages every morning. Folks are frustrated, and reasonably so. And I spoke to Congressman Alconclaus before that hearing. He told me he was going to raise this question, in solidarity with me and Congressman Magaziner, his colleagues in the House, and also Bill Keating, who's also affected by this as well. So we're all in this together. We're hearing from folks, and that's why I encourage Rhode Islanders, if you can, spend money at the affected businesses in the areas on the east side, in East Providence, and up and down we should be shopping small, so that this holiday season isn't too poorly dampened by this unfortunate circumstance.
All right, let's turn to the debates down at Capitol Hill in your new job. And the biggest one right now is whether the White House can clinch a deal with Senate Republicans over immigration policy changes in exchange for Ukraine funding, among other things. First, I just want to zoom out a little bit. We're already hearing an outcry from some progressives and immigration advocates who don't want this linked at all, don't think this conversation should be happening, and sound like they don't really like any of the ideas they're hearing. Are you open to a deal like what's being discussed, granting that you don't have any details yet?
Yeah, well, that's the problem, right? No details. But what is clear is that the president has put forward in a supplemental proposal the need to fund more Border Patrol agents to help fortify our asylum process, real things that are consistent with our values. I don't want to depart from the values that we have for a respect for people who may be fleeing unfortunate circumstances. But again, we have a imperative to take care of our issues along the border and in our cities and many of our communities.
I got to tell you, it sounds like you're open to it. When you answer Ted's question that way, it sounds like you're open to a bill that would tie Ukraine funding to increased border security.
Well, I think a lot of our priorities are inherently tied because they're all urgent. We have to act. Ukraine, you saw President Zelensky was in Washington this past week. I saw the Ukrainian ambassador over the last week as well. They need urgent action, and we're essentially punting until January. At the same time, we need action at the border. As I said in this studio during a debate, I believe that it is untenable to proceed along the road that we're on now. And unfortunately, all these crises are happening in parallel. So whether they're tied together or not, we're compelled to act in this moment.
Now, the negotiators, I read this morning, one of the either Politico or Punch Bowl said that they're not even telling reporters who try to press them for details anything because they think it'll hurt the negotiations. But one that's come through that's at least being discussed is reviving a temporary expulsion authority that both Trump and Biden used during the pandemic. Would you be open to bringing that back?
Well, I think we have to assess what its impact would be because, there's a perverse incentive there for folks to actually bypass a lawful entry if you make it incredibly hard for them to pursue what may be reasonable desires to come to this country or to escape, whether it's gang violence, whether it's oppression from the regimes down there, whatever it is. So I don't want to unfairly force more people into decisions that are unlawful and would create an additional burden on our immigration system.
But just one last question, then we'll move on. Is the problem that your party fundamentally is just kind of uncomfortable with border security? That, because it seems like most Democrats' heart is in let as many immigrants in as we can, and we want to let them be here, that every time it comes to restrictions and things like that, it just makes Democrats queasy?
No, I think we have to appeal to values. Border security means that we domestically are secure and those who are coming have a secure pathway to coming. That there's nothing inconsistent there. And I do think we have a tough time talking about it. This is often a problem with Democrats, but we have a high ideal of opportunity being brought forth by an immigration system that functions. That's why we need comprehensive immigration reform, as we've talked about. And these piecemeal deals at the end of the year to rush through the process doesn't inspire, hope for the system. But I am hoping that the negotiators on the Democratic side know that they have to get something passed in the amongst the Democratic caucus in the House. And so I have faith, but we have to make sure that we are aiming towards comprehensive solutions that we all can agree upon.
So from one conflict to another, I want to talk about Israel, Gaza, and so our viewers know you serve on the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, which you're on a Middle East subcommittee. All right, look, President Joe Biden bypassed Congress and approved the direct sale of tank shells to Israel. The State Department did so under what's called the Arms Export Control Act that skipped normal congressional approval. That has angered a lot of lawmakers, including in your party. Are you okay with it?
Well, I would prefer that wasn't the case. And this is what happens when we have delay in Congress. Look, there's a need to act in this situation to support our ally Israel, but I, especially as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, am hopeful that we use the processes that exist to provide congressional levels of accountability for the administration. And so, it is not my hope that we continue down that road for additional sales to Israel.
You and all three members of the Round delegation, all Democrats, of course, are under some pressure from the left to support a ceasefire in Gaza, which more people are calling for as they see the civilian casualties there. Where are you on a ceasefire right now?
Yeah, I've been fairly consistent on this. Right now, I don't know that it would be effective, right? If the goal here is to root out the terrorism of Hamas, and we don't necessarily have an honest broker on the other side in Hamas, with Israel still fighting to get hostages. Remember, that deal broke down because of a refusal to provide a list of women hostages who may be getting sexually abused. We've heard all sorts of terrible things that could be happening. So how is that a negotiation that is bound for success? Now, we do have a specific and important humanitarian imperative. I think we have to work hard, and you've seen President Biden say this over the last few days, to make sure our ally knows that we cannot have vast losses of civilians, innocent people dying because of a regime that actually doesn't care about them either. Hamas doesn't care about Palestinians. And so we have to do everything that we can, using our diplomatic weight, using the weight of the presidency, to ensure that fewer innocent people die. And it is heartbreaking.
Would that include any conditions on military aid to Israel?
Look, it could, but what I would say is, we have two missions, right? We will need to think about the day after in Gaza. We need to have that conversation now, because if the military campaign that Israel wages goes far beyond the mandate they have from the global community, then they will lose all faith in being partners in the day after. And that's what we need out of them. So for me, I think we can have a strategic engagement that Israel leads to make sure that we root out the terrorism of Hamas, but we also need to be prepared for the day after and bring the world community back together. And it's a terrible time, but I do have hope, and we have to work towards it.
I want to continue this conversation on the other side of the break, but before we go to break, you're a new congressman. Yes. You're doing some basic get out of the gate things, and one of those things is trying to get your constituents to sign up for updates.
Yes. I encourage all my constituents to go to amo.house.gov. Sign up for our newsletter. Join us on social media across all of the channels, whether it's Threads, X, Instagram, Facebook, at Rep Gabe Amo. I want to communicate with people as often as possible. That's why I'm here today, and I hope people join in by signing up for our newsletter.
You have embraced calling it X.
The artist formerly known as Twitter.
All right, that's pretty good. We're going to take a break here on Newsmakers. Our guest this week is Congressman Gabe Amo. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, alongside 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is Congressman Gabe Amo.
I want to shift gears a little bit, Congressman, and you're having a rare experience most of us will never have. You're joining the Congress. I'm just curious, what's the biggest surprise to you so far about what it's like to become a member of Congress?
Look, I get surprises every day, but I think the biggest set of surprises is the amount of bipartisanship that exists, at least in terms of the relationships that you're able to build.
Is that really true? I feel like you guys always say that.
I swear. So my committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, is generally seen as very bipartisan. My chairman, Mike McCall, came up to me after my first floor speech.
Who's a Republican?
The chairman of my subcommittee on Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia, Representative Joe Wilson, and I, from South Carolina, spent 30 minutes in his office yesterday talking about how to engage the work of foreign affairs, even though you've got to pay attention to the issues back home. So I think that is one surprise. I would say, another is is more disappointing is just how, especially with this congressional Republican majority in the House, that, sometimes everything isn't as thought out. There's a lot of symbolic bills that you have out there. I'm ready to get to work for Rhode Islanders on the big issues of the day. So I'm a little surprised by how much they are into the partisan politics of
You're surprised.
appealing to
You've
the
been in
extremists.
politics,
Well,
honestly.
I thought firsthand it might be a little bit different, but that's what makes me even more resolved to focus on our constituents right here in Rhode Island on as many issues as possible and making sure we get federal dollars back.
I've read people suggest that there's like two Congresses. There's the one that makes, frankly, the evening news a lot, which is the fighting and the very partisan one, and then a secret Congress, which actually negotiates bills and where bipartisanship happens, but just doesn't make as many headlines. Do you see evidence of that there's two tracks?
Sometimes on the House floor, you'll see members of the other parties move back and forth talking about things. So I do think there is some truth to that, but it's also about the context of the leadership that is presented. We've got a new Speaker of the House, and right now he hasn't shown yet that they are appealing to their members to try to get work done. Right, Congressman Chip Roy from Texas was on the floor, and he went on a big rant, and he said, Republicans have nothing to show for what they've done for the American people. That's unfortunate, and we got to get to work.
You were sworn in by the new speaker, Mike Johnson. We played some video of that throughout the show. What did you two talk about?
He met my parents, which, is surreal. Kid from Pawtucket saying, Mom, Dad, here's the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the third highest ranking member of government. Look, I did it when I worked for the president, but it's different when it's the place you're working in as an elected member. And I made a little joke with him. I said, I hope I get a line in your memoirs because I'm your first swearing in.
Yeah, there it is. There's the video now. All right, so I want to talk about some disagreements you've had with members of your own party, including right here in New England. You voted yes on the $886 billion defense funding bill. Congressman Auchincloss voted no. He said the Pentagon can do 10% more with 10% less money, and those savings should go to the wars in Ukraine and Israel. Why is he wrong?
Well, I don't necessarily think that Congressman Auchincloss is wrong, but my approach here is we did some important things in the NDAA. We raised military pay. We're investing in energy conservation and energy independence and resilience. Those are important things. Sometimes you vote on imperfect pieces of legislation. This was long negotiated by Democrats in the House and in the Senate on multiple committees of jurisdiction. And so my sense here, especially because we know the impact of the defense budget on Rhode Island jobs, that I'm always going to err on the side of supporting Rhode Islanders and Rhode Island priorities. And we just might be a little bit different, but I'm serving my district with that vote, and I stand by it.
I also just can't fathom anyone in the delegation ever voting against Senator Reid's defense funding bill. But well,
he's a good negotiator, so I know he did well.
Yes, exactly. We're going to stick with controversial votes, and you probably know where I'm going with this. You've quickly taken some votes related to anti-Semitism that got headlines. In both cases, you and Congressman Magazine are split, so let's talk about these. The first time, you voted no on a measure from the Republicans that they said would strip federal funding from colleges that allow anti-Semitic events on campus. You were one of only 2 House members in this region who voted that way, along with Ayanna Pressley. Why?
Well, I want to zoom out and say that we have to address the scourge of anti-Semitism aggressively and we have to do it sometimes with resources. So my point there and my assessment is the vague language of this particular resolution and the symbolism that it put forward would not do what I think is important to funding efforts to combat anti-Semitism. As far as I know, I'm the only member of the House who worked in the White House working on the president's strategy to combat anti-Semitism, which called for spending more resources to address the problem. So it is that perspective I brought to that vote. It's why I also joined a task force to combat anti-Semitism. It's why in my first floor speech, I talked about the efforts that we need to undertake. So for me, my analysis is based on the work that I've done before, and other members are entitled to vote how they'd like, but I want to fund, not defund, efforts to combat anti-Semitism.
Well, then there was a second vote where you got criticism from the left. This was you voted in favor of a resolution from the Republicans condemning anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. Progressive Jews in your district have pushed back, saying some of them are consider themselves anti-Zionist. Magaziner voted present on this one. Did you feel you had to vote in favor of the second resolution because of the blowback you got in the first resolution?
No, not at all. Why I voted that way is, again, I'm very clear. We need to combat anti-Semitism and to raise the sentiment of combating that, because we know that some elements of anti-Semitism are inspired by folks who don't believe in Israel's right to self-determination. There are lots of definitions around anti-Zionism, so semantic that we would spend the whole hour talking about this. What people should know ultimately is that my commitment to combating anti-Semitism, it might sometimes have votes on things that are imperfect pieces of legislation. We spoke about the imperfection of the NDAA. Some of these resolutions are imperfect, so you've got to read each one of them and look at the elements that are most critical to you and the people in your district, because I've also heard by email, by calls to my office, from many people who have said, thank you for your support. Thank you for being in this place. So I'm balancing a lot of interests, but people should know I'm always willing to explain why I vote.
Well, Newsmakers might feel like an hour, but it's only a half hour, just so you know. Look, Republicans voted this week to launch an impeachment inquiry against President Biden. I know you don't like it, but is this the price Democrats are paying for launching 2 impeachment inquiries against President Trump?
Well, I think it's very clear that former President Trump, and hopefully not President again Trump, will be facing charges and cases in multiple courts in multiple jurisdictions.
Yeah, but were Democrats too hasty with the impeachment inquiries?
Well, I think his current legal predicament suggests that they weren't too hasty, and that he has participated in unlawful behavior.
None of them have to do with the Russian, debacle and all that. You're talking about the second impeachment inquiry.
Well, what I'm saying is, unlike the pattern of behavior that we've seen from President Trump, there is no such behavior that is equivalent from President Biden. President Biden has been a very effective president over the past 2+ years, and these votes, and this vote we had on an inquiry is really a reflection of Republicans committing to the extremes of their party and not to actually getting anything done. Right? We broke for the holiday, not having addressed anything to lower costs, not addressing our gun violence epidemic, not dealing with things that the American people want us to deal with. Instead, we're voting for an inquiry where it's basically a fishing expedition.
Just so the viewers understand, the leadership has sent all of you home till January 8th, I believe?
Yes.
9th? Okay.
Yes. So, is it going to gum up everything, the impeachment inquiry? Is it just going to suck all the oxygen out of the room?
Well, it has a huge potential to, because when you look at the month of January, remember when we came to the deal and the vote that Democrats led to keep government open, we extended to January 19th.
Yeah.
Now these committees that are involved in the impeachment inquiry, I've read this morning, are likely to vote in some way by the middle of February. These timelines are pretty problematic and suggest to me a misprioritization by the extremes of the Republican Party and a focus on really distracting from the fact that they don't want to get things done.
Let's come back to the first district. Got overshadowed by the bridge fiasco, but two of the biggest employers in your district announced significant job cuts this week. CVS and Hasbro. My understanding is hundreds of Rhode Islanders among those losing their jobs. Have you spoken to either Karen Lynch or Chris Cox about the job cuts?
And we have about a minute left, Congressman.
So I have not spoken with people at both of the companies, and what I would say is that's why I'm committed to fighting for Rhode Island jobs. I'm glad to be on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, where I'm going to fight for federal dollars to expand on things like our new NOAA facility that's slated to be built in Newport, and also get as much of that federal resource here to expand jobs on bills like CHIPS and Science and so much more to invest right here in Rhode Island. So we got to build for the supply chains of the future, and I'll be right
just
there
briefly,
for it.
were you concerned to hear that?
Of course, any job loss is concerning, especially two of our hallmark companies, but I want to make sure that there are opportunities for those people to thrive in other roles here in our state.
And 20 seconds left here. How did you learn? Was it just a breaking news alert across your phone? I mean,
Yes, like other Rhode Islanders, saw it on my phone, and it makes me recommit to fighting for Rhode Island jobs in any way that I can.
All right, Congressman Gabe Amo, we appreciate you coming on the program. I hope you have a great holiday break. Back to work on January 9th. If you missed any of it, it's on WPRI.com. That's right. Oh, there you
go again.
Christmas gift.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.